I heard that when you guys finished Been a Sun, you played it on the speakers. You guys were dancing or something. Like what happened there exactly?
There are tables in the back of the studio where the advertising people sit and conduct their other business with their laptops and have little gidgy lunches and things like that. And there's an old story about when Humble Pie's record was done, they danced on the console and actually really fucked up the console. And I won't try to tell you that story. That's in the internet. But Nirvana said, well, if we can't dance on the console, can we dance on the schmincy tables that the ad people eat lunch off of? And I said, sure. And so we all jumped up on tables and danced around and played the track a couple of times, I've been done maybe 3-4 times, really high volume and act like we'd won. We awesome. Recorded a song and mixed it. Yay.
So do you remember anything in particular when it came to recording that song, A Bit of Sun? Like, was there anything that sticks out in terms of how you recorded that song?
No, I mean, they hadn't got a chance to dink around, with that kind of gear. And so I think a few other interviews I mentioned playing with this giant digital reverb that, you could make things sound preposterous with it. So we experimented with it, making it sound preposterous for a little while before we, and then also it was a trick because of the bass solo, because the whole song gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then there's a bass solo. So it's the last chorus. It's always sounds a little shitty because it's a step down from the bass solo, which is very, very frenetic and, kind of eats up the whole audio spectrum. So that was a bit of a drag trying to, get all of that to work. I still think I didn't do a very good job of that, but that's what we have.
Yeah, I think it sounds great, man. So what was it like recording Chris Novoselic's bass playing? How was he working within the studio?
Just totally cool. I think the bass solo was an overdub, but we put it alongside the one that he tracked. So it just was really thick and exactly the same way as he played it twice. No. And what was wrong with his trip? The bass was a little fucked up and the amp was a little fucked up. There was one good speaker and one good pickup. And so, it sounded good. But then the unfortunate thing was he really was trying to get his shit fixed for the session and had been running around for a couple of days, because he knew we had to get into the studio and was very nervous about that. So he meant to have it together. He worked hard to have it together, but it just, there's only so much you can do.
I hear you. You were saying that the reason that their gear was damaged is because at the end of their shows, they would often smash their equipment, right?
Right.
So just because this is something about Nirvana I've always found fascinating. If it's going to severely impact their ability to record, why did they keep smashing their gear anyways? Like, do you know why they kept doing that?
No.
It's kind of funny. So was there anything funny about the sessions, like when you were recording them? Like, are there any funny memories you have from that time with them?
Well, this is not really funny, but there was a toilet in the middle of the studio. So if you had to relieve yourself, you didn't have to leave the building. You could jump into a little improvised toilet. And it had bad wallpaper with birds and musical notes on a staff. And Chad came out of the bathroom going, "Has anybody ever played those notes? What does it actually sound like when you? What's the wallpaper?" And he says, "It was a whistle while you poop." Or that was a bad Chad joke from the session.
How was Chad as a drummer in general? Did you enjoy working with him?
Oh yeah, he's a great drummer and doesn't get his due. Mm-hmm. He's got a looser kind of, I guess, a hippie feel or something like that. But I think he sounded great in Nirvana. I think that version of In Bloom that he did was really, really good. Mm-hmm. Maybe as good as their version with Dave. If you want to just talk about opinions or something like that. But no, I think Chad's an amazing drummer. He's a really good guitar player. He's a songwriter.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, I agree. I feel like Chad really doesn't get the due. I feel like he should have been in the Hall of Fame, quite frankly, in my opinion. But that's just, that's a separate topic altogether, I suppose.
Yeah, when things get that big, there's all kinds of, shoulda, this or that. Everybody means well.
So what was the chemistry like between the three guys in the studio? What was it like to actually work with them, essentially?
It was fun. And they had a great three-way sense of humor. For a band being where they were from and what they were doing and the money that was being spent on them, and their previous recording sessions and all of that, getting to record in a 24 track was a big deal. That was the first time they'd been in a proper 24 track, which was the industry standard, full fidelity, wide tape, mixing console, all that stuff. I mean, they did a great record with Jack. I think they did a better record with Jack than they did with me, but they were nervous. It was Kurt's band, but he wasn't an asshole, but he was directing things a little bit. I think some of the recordings of Polly's, have Chad starting the song a few different times because it wasn't exactly catching. I mentioned that in an interview once, but it wasn't a problem. It just was them trying to, work out an arrangement. And when it was over with, everyone was really happy. so that it was a very quick session. We had 2 evenings to do 5 songs, and we got, 5 songs recorded and 2 finished. They talked a little bit about, having an advance from Sub Pop and, what the second record was. I mean, this sounds silly, but they said, oh, great. So we'll do the second record with you right here. This will be great. We've got an advance. And obviously the second record was Nevermind, and it happened a long way away after a lot of other shit happened. But as far as a sense of humor, I mean, they just had a good time. They didn't do, send up some other people's songs or anything like that. But it was funny. And also, the fact that they were there and they were like this new baby band on Sub Pop, and all of a sudden they're in a big studio up on Capitol Hill. That was funny. That was already ironic and weird enough that you didn't have to say much more than that without them understanding kind of the weirdness of the situation and all of that. So it was a good time. We had fun. It was, I at the risk of stepping into my own persona or narcissism or whatever, but both Kurt and Chris were big fans of Beat Happening, and so getting to work with me was I think a big deal for them at the time. So I often don't really take that into account, but I think they wanted to make a good recording because they're friends of Screaming Trees and their friends Beat Happening and a lot of other their friends that made really good recordings with me.